Okay, I have a presentation that I give which basically just summarizes some interesting cases here in South Texas. I usually speak for at least 2 hours, so you're going to get like the Reader's Digest version today. And interestingly enough, I've just had some friends of mine from McAllen provide me with some video that they took of objects in the sky, which are pretty interesting, so I'll be sharing that with you. I am a member of an organization called the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON. Has anybody heard of MUFON? It's a group comprised of entirely all volunteers. It's worldwide. And the mission of MUFON is the scientific inquiry into unidentified objects in the sky. Now, when we say UFOs, most people immediately think Star Wars, Star Trek, aliens, but that's not MUFON's directive. An unidentified object in the sky could be anything from a misidentified aircraft to a planetary object, astronomical object, to a weather anomaly, to something totally unexplained. In the field of UFOs, 95 to 97% are misidentified objects which have a conventional explanation. MUFON's mission is to apply scientific techniques to eliminate that 95 to 97%, which can be explained. And we do that by interviewing witnesses to start off with, by collecting data at the scene of the sighting or encounter, and only after eliminating all other possibilities do we then call this an unexplained event. And there are very few of those, regardless of what the media, the magazines, the newspapers, and so forth might lead you to believe. So in South Texas, we have a few MUFON members. They provide us with information about strange events that are seen in the night sky. We do a conference every year in Edinburgh. Manny is one of our regular attendees, and others of you may have attended. We hold it at the Renaissance Conference Center here just north between McAllen and Edinburgh. And Channel 5 did a very interesting report on a recent conference that we did. So I'm going to play just a short bit from the report they did.
And lots of folks in the valley are wondering about reports of UFOs. Local UFO investigators say more than 24 sightings have happened in Hidalgo and Cameron counties just this past month. Channel 5's Eddie Flores visited a UFO conference in Edinburgh. He also hit the streets to see what people had to say.
The young man who shot this daytime footage and others who have had similar experiences attended this UFO conference in Edinburgh.
We just saw an orb in our backyard far away, and it was flying, and it would stop, then do this, and then it would go up, and kind of like pendulum, you know, and then it would just kept doing that as it went.
The little dots are stars, but these are actually moving. And I have the camera on shutter speed, like 1 second, so it shows the movement. And this one right here, it actually curves, so it's like somebody's maneuvering it.
While most of the folks who attended the conference were here to see nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman, he broke the story about Roswell, and Travis Walton, whose alleged alien abduction was made into a movie, Fire in the Sky. But many wanted to see what local UFO investigators have uncovered about possible sightings here in the valley.
There have been 60 in the last month in Cameron and Hidalgo County alone. And so that's a significant number.
Noe Torres says the possible sightings were all reported to the Mutual UFO Network, even though he admits very few sightings are legitimate.
Not every light in the sky is a UFO, and not every UFO is an unknown. Most UFOs, 90 to 95% of them, have a conventional explanation.
It looks like it's changing formation a little bit.
Many folks don't believe video like this amounts to anything.
I don't believe in it at all. You know, I think it's this pipe dream.
I do not believe in flying saucers or aliens. I really don't.
But Stanton Friedman, who has spent his life trying to uncover government records about UFOs, thinks we will all find out the truth in time.
We will be informed, perhaps reluctantly, that indeed Earth is being visited by extraterrestrials, and the government has known a great deal about it for a long time. Here are the reasons we didn't tell you. Now the new world begins.
Eddie Fluttish, Channel 5 News this morning.
I thought Eddie did a tremendous job. He spent a lot of time with us at the conference. Stanton Friedman is a fantastic gentleman. I had the pleasure to know him over a period of many years, and Travis Walton as well. Travis will be with us at our conference in Del Rio coming up in 2 weeks. On the sheet that was passed out, I have information if anybody's interested in attending our conference. It will be held at the historic Paul Pogue Theater in downtown Del Rio. That's about a 6-hour drive from here, in case you're not familiar with the city. It's a very nice place to visit, and certainly a top tourist destination in Texas. I'm going to show you one of the most striking videos that has been taken in South Texas of a UFO, an unidentified. We were unable to come up with any explanation for this. This was filmed over the roof line in a subdivision in Laredo, just north of here. And this is what it looks like. October 23rd, 2011. The first sequence here is in real time. And we've had experts look at this. Early on, a lot of people said, well, that could be a drone. But the aviation experts that have looked at this and the MUFON investigators that have looked at this do not think that that is a drone. That's a triangular UFO, which is a common formation seen in many UFO sightings. And you'll see a zoom up here in just a minute. We ran it through a number of color spectrums, and which kind of highlight the temperature variations on the surface of this object. And interestingly, it has kind of a halo effect around it. And you see 3 distinct circular patterns, one in each corner. There were approximately 30 people in this group that were watching this, so this isn't a single event. And that, as UFO investigators, this is what we look for: multiple witnesses to a single event. Of course, it would be preferable if they were at different locations. In this case, they were having a party in someone's backyard. It was actually a star party. They were observing heavenly bodies, astronomical objects, when they saw this weird thing floating just above the roof line of nearby houses. Interesting similar object was reported to us at MUFON in August of 2014, last year. I'm going to show you this. You're going to see some of the same characteristics that we just saw in the night vision photograph. Here is the here are the 3 points of light flying in formation, and there's this is one of the MUFON cases that was reported here from Mission. And interestingly, this has some kind of a blinking light down here. Now, people always say, well, lights in the sky, how can you prove that's anything? And it is very difficult, because we see lights in the night sky all the time. We know that depending on what angle you are looking at an object, it could be a airliner that's taking a certain angle departure from your point of view. It could be some other normal object. There are a few, though, that are very difficult to explain. I'm going to show you a couple more. This one is another MUFON case, 63070 from here in McAllen. It's a strange daytime UFO sighting. You'll see an orb in a minute. It just kind of gliding across the sky. You see birds. We always look for reference points. Unfortunately, you cannot trust 99% of what you see on YouTube or on the internet in terms of UFOs. People are faking these videos, and so the first thing that we look at is any kind of artifacts that might prove that this is a faked video. It doesn't appear that this is. Now, I want to emphasize that if we have a video or a picture, that's not anywhere near enough to make any sort of conclusion. We have to interview witnesses. We have to go to the location. We have to do other data gathering. So people always come up to me at our conferences and our events and when I speak, and they show me a picture that they took, or they bring it up on their smartphone. Well, I cannot make any determination from just a picture or a cell phone image or a cell phone video. But this is interesting. Here's another one from Mission, Texas, March 2012. Just going to show you a brief segment of this one. About 4 or 5 lights shimmering, flying in formation. This was actually taken by one of my cousins in the Sherryland area. People always ask me, do people in the valley really report UFOs? Well, we know that only a small percentage of people who see strange objects in the sky or landed, in some cases landed on the ground, but a small percentage of them actually report them. This is just a quick screen capture I did of all the reports that have come into MUFON in the past few weeks from Hidalgo County. So there's a substantial number of reports. Now, I've included in the information sheet that you have in front of you how to report your own UFO sighting. You just go to the website MUFON.com, and there's a place at the top that says report a UFO. This is a worldwide database of UFO sightings. Another thing we do when a UFO is reported is we look at what other people at the same time and more or less the same place have reported using that database. So it is active here. And just recently, a friend of mine who's a police officer for the McAllen ISD, I've worked for the school district for 16 years as a librarian. Officer Jesus Enrique, with his, he was on patrol one evening last year when he noticed a strange light above the roof line of a subdivision here in McAllen. And he took out his smartphone and began filming. And this is the video that he sent me, the raw footage of it. Before we see it, I'm just going to share with you his comments. On Thursday, June 12, 2014, at about 4 in the morning, while working the midnight shift, I arrived at my residence located in the city of McAllen for my lunch break. As I exited my patrol unit, I noticed what appeared to be a light hovering in the sky directly to the south of my residence. You see it here. At first, I figured it to be a plane or similar aircraft as it showed a faint green light. As I kept observing, I took notice of the way it was hovering, which was not common for an aircraft. In disbelief, I took out my iPhone 5 from my duty belt and started filming said object. As I'm filming, I heard several dogs in the area barking wildly. Animal responses to UFO appearances is an interesting field of study as well. Anyway, let's watch his video. This is raw footage right off his camera. He sent it to me the day after it happened. Notice how it moves. It's going to make a really strange motion here in just a moment. We like it when the person filming keeps stationary reference points in the frame, because that gives us a clue as to, look at that sudden dip down. So we don't know what that was. We submitted that to our McAllen investigators, and there was nothing conclusive yet. I'm just going to play that last little bit again because it's fascinating. This part is what intrigues me, this motion right here. Officer Enriquez rushed inside his house to woke up his wife so that she could come out and see it, and by the time they got out, it was no longer there. So she jinxed it, right? Daryl, let me know how I'm doing on the time. Give me maybe a... We had a very interesting encounter in Edinburgh in 2012. We had a woman named Natalie, who is a personal acquaintance of one of my co-workers. This was late at night. She woke up and was thirsty. So she got up and went to her kitchen and was getting a drink of water from the sink. When she looked out her kitchen window and saw illumination outside. This was near the intersection of Freddy, Gonzalez, and Jackson. 3 a.m., she was in her kitchen looking to the northwest. Her kitchen window was oriented to the northwest. She saw off in the distance a bright glowing orb in the sky, multicolored. So what Natalie did was she first went outside in her yard to see if she could identify what that object or what that light was. And because she thought it was close by. Well, when she got outside, she realized it wasn't anywhere close. It was off in the distance. So she saw it off to the northwest. So what she did was she got in her vehicle, totally intrigued by this. She got in her vehicle and went west on Freddy, and then up on McCall to University. Then she went across University, and it still was farther away, even as she drove, seemed farther away. So finally, she turned on north of Mission in the vicinity, in the road going to Moore Air Base. This is North Conway. And she encountered a DPS roadblock there, and there were 2 officers. She said she stopped her car at the roadblock. She saw 2 highway patrolmen. She got out of the car and approached the officers, still keeping her eye on this hovering object. It was a large saucer-shaped object that was hovering about 50 feet above the pavement, off in the distance beyond the roadblock that had been set up. She turned to one of the highway patrolmen and said, "Are you seeing this?" And the patrolman, she says, turned to her and said, "Yes, ma'am, we are." But she was at that point told that she would have to leave, and she left the scene. And ever since then, she has been incredibly curious to find out what it was that was out there near Moore Air Base. Which leads me to just pop in here that I believe that a very high percentage of UFO sightings are test aircraft or secret military projects. You'll notice, I'm sure, those of you that have paid attention to this, that a lot of UFO sightings occur near military installations, such as Area 51 in Nevada. So, you know, people always ask, why do we have so many UFO sightings around military installations? Well, the military is always testing secret aircraft. There are many, many designs of aircraft that we have never seen yet. They've been under development for years. And when people see those suckers flying, they have no point of reference. They are so unconventional. The stealth characteristics, the technology that's in some of those craft is amazing. So we know that from Nevada test site to here seems like a really long distance, but if you're traveling thousands of miles in a very short period of time, it really isn't. So, I mean, could more air base be used occasionally for testing secret aircraft? That's possible. Okay, we had a mass sighting going back in history a little bit, and this will be about the last item that we'll have time for today, but we had a mass sighting which is very interesting in downtown McAllen in the summer of 1953. Now, we had a fleet of UFOs that hovered over the city in a circular pattern, going from downtown McAllen out toward the island and then back up toward Moore Air Base in a circle. And many, many people saw this. This was first reported to me by a gentleman named David Christian Newton, who does travel tours of Mexico and has vacation properties in Mexico. In the summer of 1953, he was 6 years old, and a whole bunch of people in McAllen witnessed this daytime sighting. 7 flying discs moving back and forth very quickly here in the McAllen area. The discs were brightly glowing, white in color, and they with just a tinge of yellow. They were flying at about 40,000 feet, and they flew sometimes in what appeared to be a formation, like diagonal formation, and other times they seemed to just be randomly scattered across the sky. So David Newton was standing right here, about 12, near the intersection of Cedar, and these were in the sky for over an hour, and many people were looking at them. David said he noticed people coming out of their homes and looking up in the sky, people coming out of their vehicles, stopping their vehicles in downtown McAllen, getting up and looking up at the sky. And this was the approximate pattern that these objects followed. They moved fast, much faster than any jet aircraft at the time. They circled the area. They zoomed down toward Mexico, but not too far, and then back toward San Padre Island. Then northwest toward Moore Air Base. So for 2 hours, people observed this formation of UFOs in downtown McAllen. And when I was doing the research for this, we received an email where another McAllen resident of that time period said, "Good morning. Yes, I do remember the UFO incident one sunny summer morning in 1953 vividly." How are we doing on the time? I have one more. Okay, I have one more case that I want to share with you, because this is another doozy in the unexplained category. This occurred north of Edinburgh in 1966, and it happened to a very well-known law enforcement official here in the valley. His name was Milo Ponce, or J.R. Milo Ponce. He was a deputy sheriff in 1966 and later was an Hidalgo County commissioner. This is Milo Ponce when he worked for the sheriff's department with his wife, and this was right after he got out of the military, and this is when he worked for the sheriff's department. Milo Ponce's UFO story took place north of Edinburgh. Here's 281, and it occurred on Farm to Market 490 near Laguna Seca Road. And what happened was that in October, November 1966, Ponce received a phone call dispatching him to the location of where several disturbed men alongside Farm to Market 490 were waving down passing cars frantically. And they appeared to be disheveled and they appeared to be distraught, and something had obviously happened to them. So Milo Ponce got in his unit and went out there. Turned out the 8 men were digging a caliche pit, or gravel pit, for a company out of North Texas. They were yelling and screaming. Finally somebody stopped. He got their attention. They got his attention, then he went down to a local truck stop and called it into the sheriff's department. So he went out there in his unit, and among the things that they told him was that they needed help putting out a fire. So I went out there with Milo Ponce's son, Joe, who lives in Edinburgh, and he showed me where all this happened. And what had happened is this object had come hovering in the sky and has shot down flames, some kind of beam or some kind of ray, onto the construction site where the men had all their equipment, their pickup trucks, and they were actually living there in a small mobile home. And everything just caught fire and was blazing by the time Milo Ponce got out there and the other emergency responders. So everything was charred and burned on fire. The men were later taken to the sheriff's office where they were interviewed and then allowed to spend the night. They told the sheriff's deputies that they would never return to the site of the incident, and they reportedly left town next day happy to escape with their lives. So what they heard actually was, first they saw bright lights in the sky. They heard a loud humming or throbbing sound. They also experienced sudden strong winds, almost gale force winds on an otherwise calm night. And then they saw flames shooting down out of the sky, setting ablaze the entire surrounding area, including their vehicles and their mobile homes. Now this is in the case files of the county sheriff's department. Everything was totally burned up. So here is 490. Here's along the road where the men were first trying to wave down passing cars. Here's the caliche pit where they were working, still exists today. And here's where all the equipment that the men had was. They had all their equipment right around here. It's interesting that after all these years, the site remains. We found artifacts. Joe took me out there. We found burned rocks, burned pieces of metal. Joe thought that this possibly came off their mobile home where they were living. And we're just going to hear some brief comments from Joe Ponce.
My dad received a phone call from the sheriff's department at around 12 midnight, and the dispatcher, who at that time was George Rapp, was telling my dad to get out here to this area because there were some people that were standing out on Highway 490, and they were asking for help, or they were acting kind of particular. And my dad came out here, and that's when he found these gentlemen out here. But he didn't come by himself. He came with another gentleman by the name of Sam Gonzalez, who was the owner of the ranch. And they were the people that were standing out here and were asking for help were the workers that were working in the ranch in the caliche pits, getting caliche out. They worked for a company from upstate. They were all Anglo gentlemen. And when my father describes one of them in particular was a gentleman who had just his t-shirt on and his pants, but he had urinated all over himself. That's how scared he was.
They must have seen something really unusual.
Yeah.
And they refused to go back to the work site.
Right, yes. They, in the report, if you ever find that police report, in the report it says that Mr. Gonzalez had asked them to go back, you know, to where they were staying at in that trailer house or those living quarters, and they refused. They refused to go back. They weren't going to do it because apparently they just didn't have just one occasion to see whatever they had seen, but they had seen it several times.
Very interesting story, still under investigation. When Joe Ponce came forward and gave us all the details on it, it really blew our minds. So, I have enjoyed sharing some of my experiences. Normally this is a 2-hour talk, but I know you guys don't want to sit here for 2 hours listening to this. So anyway, thanks to everybody for inviting me. And Daryl, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
I can't ask any questions.
Any questions? I know you're waiting. I know you wanted to ask, Jeff. I knew that.
I have to.
Go ahead.
I guess my question is, you know, I went to one of the meetings back in 80s in Seguin, Texas. I guess they had a meeting.
Seguin is where MUFON started.
Yes. Yeah. I was a consultant to Noe Torres when I was working there. But I forgot the name of that gentleman. But anyway, I guess my question is, what have you learned? What is your result so far? It doesn't seem like there is any picture of the crash site or actual UFO on the ground.
I'm going to preface my remarks by saying that I am actually a skeptic. You know, I like investigating these things, but I'm the kind of person that has to actually touch UFO wreckage and see the creatures, you know, coming toward me before I'm going to believe that these are extraterrestrial craft. Okay? But I have always been a fan of astronomy and outer space, and you know, I grew up in the 60s when space flight was a thing, and so it fascinates me to try to get to the bottom of what people are seeing. Have I found a conclusive eureka moment that explains the whole UFO phenomenon? No, I haven't. And there's been people a lot smarter than me. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, Stanton Friedman, many others who have been looking at this issue since the 50s, and they have no firm conclusion either. It's within the realm of the unexplained, the paranormal, as many as other things that happen in our lives are. We don't know if there's dimensions that we don't have access to yet, if the rules of physics we think we have such a good grasp on, and Stanton Friedman could speak on this better than I can, being a nuclear physicist, that we don't understand yet. But for some reason there seem to be transition points where suddenly we see things that don't really seem to be there. So do I have a conclusive answer? No, I tell people that most UFO sightings can be explained if we have enough evidence. There's just 5% or less that really tickle the imagination, let me just put it that way. Sorry, that's the best I can do.
Let me ask you a question. All the astronauts that we send into space,
many of which have had UFO sightings, by the way. But NASA has a policy where they're not to be made public. There is a compilation, very nice compilation online. If you do a search for like astronaut UFO sightings, there are some nice compilations of comments that some of our former astronauts have made. They don't talk about it until after they leave their NASA service. Other questions? Hillary Clinton said that if she's elected, she'll get to the bottom of the UFO mystery. She was speaking in New Hampshire. The folks at the Del Rio Chamber of Commerce, who are organizing our UFO conference in 2 weeks, have invited all the presidential candidates and sent them tickets, free tickets to attend, especially hoping that Hillary will come. Whether they can make it or not, you know, it's there for them. We don't know. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.